Hey guys, welcome back to The Joy of Wrenching. My name's Les. I'm your friendly neighborhood mechanic. And today in the shop we got Baylor's big 2012 Dodge Ram 1500, and it's a 4x4. The problem that he's having is he needs new front struts and new front lower control arms. And there's a ton of great videos out there, including some of mine, that show you how to remove the struts and the lower control arms. But what they don't show you, and I want to cover in this video today, is what happens when some of those bolts won't come out. The lower control arm, the lower strut bolts often get seized in place with corrosion. And I want to show you in this video the easiest way that we found to remove those things. And I want to show you the tool that you're going to need in order to get them out with the least amount of headache possible. So come along as we get into it. All right, guys, so on these Ram trucks, if you're having to replace your lower control arms, you may run into some problems, as we have here, where some of the bolts do not want to come out. And I want to show you why they don't come out and then how to deal with it. So the first one that you may run into is the lower shock mount here, where this bolt may not want to come out. And if you look right in here, you'll see that that bolt goes through a metal sleeve. And a lot of times there'll be a lot of corrosion inside of that sleeve, and it gets this bolt seized in here. If that happens, you're going to have to cut the bolt off and then press out or replace your lower control arm to get a new lower bushing. The other place that often gets seized up is these bolts, which are your cam adjustment bolts for your alignment. As you turn these bolts, you'll see how that lower control arm moves in and out to adjust the alignment. These things can get seized inside of the bushing that they run through as well. And that has happened to us back here on this one. Let me show you how seized this thing is. I've got this pry bar, and I just barely move this thing around. I've had it soaking in PB Blaster, so it's moving just a little bit. But if I come over to here, to these on this side as well, nothing. So we're going to have to cut these off as well. So it's just sort of a fact of life, I guess, with some of these older Ram trucks, especially if you live in an area where you have to deal with rust and salt on the roads. These things will be seized in place. And so I want to show you a couple of different methods to get them out of here, cut them off, and I want to show you the one that I found works the best. All right, so let me show you what's going on and why this thing gets seized up in here. You'll be able to undo these nuts pretty easily. This is a 24 millimeter. Then you've got your cam adjustment. Most of the time that'll slide off too. You see how it's kind of got this hex shape. It's not quite a hex, there's a special shape to it, but pentagon maybe, I don't know. But look right in here and you'll see that this bolt goes through a steel bushing, and that steel bushing to the bolt will get corrosion in it like it does here, and it just will not allow this bolt to turn independent of that bushing. So as you're cranking on it, you're just turning the bushing, it'll break loose of the rubber that it's surrounded, and it'll just spin in place, just the same as what we see with these things here. And so the fix is, let's cut these bolts off. So you might say, well, just whack on it with a hammer. And so, okay, let's try that. I want to show you that we've got our nut here flush with the end of our bolt so that we've got a nice solid place to hit. And I've got a, I don't know, 2-pound sledge here, and we're just going to give it the beans. Okay, so nothing moved. That doesn't do anything for you. So try it, but don't be surprised if the hammer trick doesn't help. So we're going to have to cut this bolt out of here. Now, there's a couple different ways to do that. Obviously, you could go all the way to the extreme of using a cutting torch, but I don't want to do that because you could melt parts of your frame or something that's necessary to help with alignment and holding this onto your vehicle in the future. I've got a 4-inch cutoff wheel here, and you might think, man, that'll make short work of it, but look at this. That doesn't have enough reach to get up in there and cut. And it's not just because of the guard on my tool here. It just doesn't have the length. Now, if you had a cutoff wheel that was, say, 6 inches, you might could get in there and cut that way with that. The other option that I like is to get yourself a Sawzall with a carbide tooth blade. And what you're going to do is you're going to get it in here and try and cut through the bolt, and you might even have to cut through that sleeve, that bushing sleeve right there, and you're going to cut through that, and that'll release this so that it can come out. Now, if you notice on this side, there's a little bit of daylight between our bushing right here and the frame right there. And what I want to do is see if I can widen that gap out so that I can get my blade in here and only have to cut the bolt. If I can just cut the bolt, that'll save me a lot of, tooth wear and time in having to cut that steel bushing as well. All right, so I want to try and open up the gap between the bushing, the steel bushing inside of this control arm and the frame right there so that I can get access just to the bolt itself. And so I'm going to come in here and try and wedge a pry bar in here and pry the two apart. What I'm trying to do is really just bend this ear of the frame out just a hair, wide enough to get the blade in there. This pry bar isn't working too well right here because, as you can see, as I pry, all that's happening is the rubber bushing is moving. If you can get a better point to pry from or against maybe the other side here, that might help. But what I'm thinking will probably be best is I'm going to hit it here with a hammer. And again, I'm just trying to bend this frame horn out just a hair. All right, now if you look up in there, you'll see that that gap hopefully is wide enough now that I can get this blade in there and just cut the bolt and not have to cut that metal sleeve also. All right, let's see how this goes. Okay, so we've got about a little over halfway through that bolt. And as you can see, we're starting to rub a little paint off of here, but the teeth are still looking pretty good. I'm going to spray just a little bit of WD, a little bit of lubricant in there, just so that it might help it cut. Let me just spray a little bit of WD in there, keep the blade cool. Maybe it'll help it cut just a little bit better as well. Let's finish this bolt, at least this side of the bolt off. There it is. Woo! She cut right through it. And again, these teeth still feel pretty good. But here's what it looks like cut through. As you can see, we just cut the bolt in this case. We didn't have to cut through the sleeve. Unfortunately, on the other side here, we're going to have to cut this side too. And I cannot get a gap between the bolt and that sleeve. They're just two C's together. I'm going to try and get a pry bar in here and wedge this apart and see if I can't just see the bolt itself. But I don't think I'm going to get that lucky. We're going to try it though. To get a gap between the bolt and that bushing because they're just seized into one another. So I'm going to have to cut through this steel bushing inside of the frame here. So I'll put another blade on here, a shorter one, because the longer one kind of hits the frame and sort of bends up and around. So I've got a shorter one, still the same carbide teeth. If you're interested in these things, I'll put links in the description to these products. I'm not sponsored by it, but you can see if it works or not. All right, so I'm gonna cut through this one and I'll bring you back. She's cutting, just takes a little while. I'm gonna look up in there and see what we got so far. We're getting through there, it just takes a little while. See, the blade is holding up pretty well. And I'm using the Milwaukee M12, you know, that's a really, you know, compact handheld Sawzall. I don't think that if I had a big, heavier Sawzall that this would be much easier. It really isn't bogging down this little M12 even trying to cut through there. I don't know why I saw it back and forth. Makes you feel better sometimes, like it should work more. Whew. Little thing's starting to get hot though. So my M12 here was doing a fine job, but I am noticing after a while that it's getting a little, the motor itself's getting a little hot. And so I don't want to cook my little, this thing isn't really designed for this type of work anyway. I was just using it because I didn't think it would take this long. But I've chalked up the blade in my corded Sawzall, and I noticed this one's got a longer stroke too, so that might actually help. So let's see if we can finish this off. I think we probably should have started with this one to begin with. All right, so scratch what I said about the little M12. Get you a big bad boy like this thing. The longer stroke, maybe a little bit more weight, it just really ate through that bolt. And so now you can see we cut through the sleeve and the bolt. Now once we cut through the bolt, it looks like it released. You can see all that corrosion there that was holding the two together. But yeah, so this side is free, and we didn't harm our frame or anything like that. This side already, we were lucky enough that this one was not seized, and so we can get this side out and replace this control arm now. Guys, I just wanted to take this second to thank Baylor for the awesome job that he's doing on filming. Hopefully he's getting all of those angles and showing you exactly what you need to see so you can do this job yourself. And by the way, Baylor, come tell us a little bit about how your truck ended up this way and what you do.
Yeah, so this thing's been anywhere and everywhere ever since I was 16. I haven't. I'm 26 now. Hit deer, potholes, always ends up back in Lesson's shop. But I love having him as a neighbor. He does an awesome job with explaining things. Subscribe to his channel. And also, A Primal Life is my channel. Watch where this truck goes and see what we do.
Cut the back one, the back bolt here. This one actually, luckily, is free. And so, just knock it out, pull it out, and here comes our lower control arm. And you can see what the bolts look like. If you have to cut these bolts, Dorman actually has a really good kit. They sell the replacement bolts that look just like the originals, and so don't fret if you have to cut these things. See, look at all that corrosion that gets caught up in, especially inside of this hex or this pentagonal sort of shape here. You can see why these things get seized the way they do. But we'll put the new ones in there, new control arms, new cam adjustment bolts, and we will be back in business. All right, so here's the one that we just removed from the vehicle. And come look at this bushing again. So here's your steel bushing that's seized to the bolt that goes through it because of those gaps that fill in with corrosion, and it just will not let it turn. This side, I was able to get a gap between this metal sleeve and the frame and get that blade in there just to where I only had to cut the bolt. So that went pretty quick. On the other side, the inside here, I was not able to get that gap, so I had to cut the sleeve, the bushing sleeve, and through the bolt. Once it cut through that bolt, it released. It didn't have to cut all the way through the sleeve, but still, it's just added a little bit more sawing. And as I showed, having a really big, heavy-duty Sawzall really helps on this case. And that carbide blade, it is barely, the teeth are in good shape and still good, and we'll continue using it. Those are tough blades. New hardware from Dorman, and as I mentioned, you've got this sort of hex feature here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pentagon feature, sorry. So it only goes one way. You might think, you know, it kind of goes anyway, and you might even get frustrated and say, oh my gosh, they didn't machine this right. It won't fit. But don't worry, just turn it until it goes in, because there's only one way. And that's by design, so that these cams line up for the guy that's doing the alignment to know where to place them. So don't worry about that. And we'll put these in here. And again, the head of the bolts go from the front towards the back. And then these round parts have to fit inside of these little tabs that are welded onto the frame. And if you marked where these were lined up before you took it apart, you just put it back where it was when you tighten it up. In this case, we're taking it all new, all these worn out parts, putting new ones in. The alignment's going to have to be done regardless, and it probably won't be where it was before. All right, so we're going back with a good quality Moog part, M-O-O-G, and this is cast iron versus the original, which is aluminum, and these are made to replace the aluminum ones. So don't worry about cast iron versus aluminum. They're slightly heavier, but they're also heavier duty. And with as much off-roading as Baylor does in this truck, he's going to appreciate that. All right, let's put this, line this thing up here. Oh, come on now.
You're good right there.
There we go. All right. There we go. You got that one bolt through, then it'll hold itself up. Then you can put your cam in place. And again, it just goes on one way. And you'll know it's the right way because it'll go flush. And then take your locking nut, and we'll just spin them on for now, leaving this kind of loose. We get that bolt in place of where we cut the old one out here. All right, like I said, these are Dorman replacement parts, but they're really well made. No need to be afraid of the name. Come on over here, I'll show you how we put this cam on here. Just, if it doesn't want to go on, just keep rotating it until it does. Once it goes flush, you know you're in the right spot. Then you get your lock nut, and it's kind of got a, I don't know, a beveled edge that goes outward. There we go. Now we're ready to put everything back together. Well, there you go, guys. That's the easiest way that I have found to get those seized bolts out. If you've got a better idea, please leave me some comments down below. If you think I'm an idiot, I want to hear that too. That's okay. But like I said, I'm not sponsored by these guys, but man, I tell you, these Sawzall blade with this big beefy carbide teeth, they are tough. Here's one that we've been using, and it made its way through at least 2 bolts before a couple of teeth. And it's not even wore out. I'd still be using this sucker, but it just got a little slower. And so that, and in addition to using a really heavy duty, long stroke Sawzall, really cut through those bolts like butter, and those bushings as well. Hopefully this saves you guys a bunch of time and a bunch of headaches. If so, I really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It helps us to reach a greater audience. Thank you for your time. Y'all have a wonderful week, and God bless.